Morning, councillors, and welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting of the 11th of September. I declare the meeting open at 10 a.m. Today, we have the student leaders from King's College to do a welcome to country for us. So I'd invite Ava and her peers to come up. If everyone could stand while they do the acknowledgement to country, and then we'll just carry straight on to prayers afterwards, so we don't need to stand and sit again. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Ava Hendrickson, and these are some of the leaders from King's Christian College, Logan Village. On behalf of our college, we would like to acknowledge God the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, creator of heaven and earth. We also acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Yugambeh people. We pay our respects to them and their elders past, present, and emerging. On this land, they taught their children their beliefs, knowledge, and culture, and we strive to do the same at our college now. The earth and everything on it belong to the Lord. The world and its people belong to him. Psalms 24:1. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ava. And I know that it's your last week of term 3, so you've got heaps of time today. So you're going to stay for the whole meeting, aren't you? That's fantastic. If you guys could take your seat. Locked them in, on camera. Can't go back now. I'd now like to invite, I too would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and their elders past, present and emerging, and invite Father Dan Talbot from Canterbury College to open this meeting with a reflection of faith. If you please remain standing while Father Dan does his prayer, I would be grateful.
As we gather today as representatives of our Logan community, I wish to honour the diverse spiritual paths that enrich our collective journey. As we gather in a Christian setting this morning, I wish to express my respect for the beliefs embraced by every individual. May my prayers inspire and nurture your unique connection to the sacred. Today, in thinking about what to say, I thought best to leave the words to God. And so I've grabbed a passage of scripture that is known as the book of Romans. It's Paul's letter to the Roman church. And it's chapter 12. It's where he begins to talk about how to live as good people. And so I thought these words might resonate with you and hopefully encourage you and inspire you to be the best version of yourselves. Paul writes, "Let love be genuine. Hate what is evil. Hold fast to what is good. Love one another with mutual affection. Outdo one another in showing honour. Do not lag in zeal. Be ardent in spirit. Serve the Lord, rejoicing in hope. Be patient in suffering. Persevere in prayer. Contribute to the needs of the saints. Extend hospitality to strangers. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse them. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty, but associate with the lowly. Do not claim to be wiser than you are. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. But take thought of what is noble in the sight of all. If it is possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave room for the wrath of God. For it is written, 'Vengeance is mine, I will repay,' says the Lord. No, if your enemies are hungry, feed them. If they are thirsty, give them something to drink. By doing this, you will heap burning coals on their heads. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." Let us pray. Spirit of justice and truth, grant to our Logan City Council and all who serve in public life wisdom and skill, imagination and energy. Protect them from corruption and the temptation of self-serving. Help us to commit ourselves to the common good, that our land may be a secure home for all its people. Direct our work and influence our decisions to the advantage of your glory and the safety and welfare of this country, so that peace and happiness, truth and justice may be established among us all. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. Everyone may be seated. Thank you, Father Dan. You're welcome to stay with us for the meeting if you're able, but I understand God's work keeps you very busy, so if you have to attend other responsibilities, we understand that as well. Councillors, I have not received any requests for leave of absence for today's meeting. However, I note that Councillor Jeremiah has provided notification to the local government that he will be unavailable during the state election for legislative leave. That begins on the 1st of October and ends when the writs are returned. There is no need to consider this matter now, as we consider it each meeting that Councillor Herrmeyer is not available for. Do any councillors have any questions on that matter before I move on? No? Excellent. We'll now move on to condolences. Do any councillors have any condolences they would like to raise? Councillor Lane?
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. Tracy and Baz live 3 doors down the road from me, and they've been married some 30 plus years, raised 5 children combined between them. And Tracy pulled her back a couple of weeks ago and went to the doctors and found a tumour had wrapped around her spine through her major organs, and she passed away quite quickly. Tracy was an amazing community member. She was just a woman that wanted to stay at home and look out for her family, and she did that with a real big passion. And, you know, she leaves behind Craig, Cassandra, Brendan and Taylor, but she also took on 2 other children that weren't hers, and that's Adam and Shailene. She's a grandmother of April, Hayley, Cody and Leyland, and she will be sorely missed in our community as a cheeky bugger that would yell at her husband every time he was fixing up his race cars. The second one that I have is John Wagstaff. John will be laid to rest tomorrow at the crematorium at Stapleton. He was as gruff as a billy goat, but he had a kindness about him that was absolutely magic. He would help anybody out at any time. John started working as a handyman in and around the community, and an accident left him unable to work for the remainder of his life. But it never stopped him from actually helping people. He was a shocking hoarder, and the stuff that his son Chris will have to deal with is quite extensive, but I know that the community will wrap their arms around him. And when he's laid to rest tomorrow, we just want to extend our best wishes to Chris. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Do any other councillors have any further condolences they would like to offer? There being none, I ask that you rise. We will now observe a moment of reflection in honour of those who have gone before us and in support of those who remain behind. Thank you, councillors and members of the gallery. You may be seated. I now refer to the minutes of the previous ordinary council meeting. I move that the minutes of the ordinary... Oh, sorry, congratulations. How did I skip congratulations? Do any councillors have any congratulation motions they'd wish to raise? And I believe Councillor Lane is first cab off the rank again.
Always up for a chat, even when I'm crook. So, Essie Blaze, congratulations to Essie Blaze and the Youth Alive team who hosted Wonderworld at KBF. What an amazing event that was, over 4,500 young people coming together in a safe space to party, dance to hip-hop and just be kids. It was absolutely fabulous. Dr Zachariah for the Multicultural Mala Job Expo was an amazing one just down here at the Logan Entertainment Centre. So many people got to meet prospective employees and find their pathway, find their way in life so that they can contribute to our local community. Logan City Netball had their 50-year celebrations and they got to open their new courts, which we were very much a part of, as was the state government, so thanks to Cameron Dick again. And the team down there are amazing. With over 1,000 players, they manage to fit people into a very small facility and they do the best that they can. Springwood Tri-Services, the Vietnam Veterans Commemoration and Luncheon hosted Mr Mayor, Councillor Russell and myself on the day. It was absolutely a lovely commemoration service and I just want to say thanks very much to them. The World of Cultures event at the Kingston Butter Factory was a fantastic display of what happens when all of our cultures come together. And we got there and we celebrated and we danced and we just had an absolute ripper of a time. So SSI and Kenny Duke and the team from there, congratulations to them. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Are you sure you don't have any other congratulations? Good. They will be noted. Do any councillors have any further congratulations? Councillor St Ledger.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I just want to give a congratulations to Darryl Riley and his team. Darryl's sitting up the back there and very, very modest, but their work and their assistance in getting the on the rail trail with myself in particular when we first initially met about it, we were really open and honest with each other and said there'll be a couple of things we'll butt heads on, and I can't thank the team enough. Also yourself and our Deputy Mayor for coming out there and really working hard with me on the relationship that we were able to build out there at Palm Lakes. And a special thank you, Daryl, to your whole team, but particularly Liam. We spoke about getting some of the finer details nutted out before we were able to bring that to committee, and Liam worked his backside off to get that done. So just really big thank you to the team and everyone involved.
Thank you, Councillor St Ledger. I'm sure Darryl will pass that high praise on. To any councillors? Councillor Jackson.
Thank you. I'd like to congratulate Beryl Brown on her 95th birthday this week. It was great to celebrate with her and her family. Beryl and her late husband Laurie are local legends from the Park Ridge area, but had moved into seasons retirement in Division 5 at Waterford West over the last several years. It was great to meet with her family. She is known for a household of fun, food and family, way beyond her own biological kids, as a place to gather in Park Ridge over decades. And so it's great to gather in Tygum Park and celebrate together with them. And I'd like to pass on our congratulations.
That will be done. Councillor Hall.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'm just going to sneak this one in. I'd like to congratulate my niece and nephew-in-law, Kiana and Bryn, on the birth of their baby boy in Logan Hospital. This is the 5th generation of my family living in Logan, and just once again goes to prove that I'm a great uncle.
Hey.
It's all you, Councillor Horn. It's all you. Councillor Fraser, Councillor Jeremiah, Councillor Bannon, Councillor Stemp.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to ask congratulations please be passed on to Vanessa Sherman and the Flower Crew Originals Florist in Logan Home, who was recently announced the winner of the Florist category in the 2024 Australian Women's Small Business Champions Awards. Renowned as the Logies of Australian small business, this red carpet event attracts thousands of nominations and honours the nation's most exceptional female leaders who are making a real impact in the small business sector. Mr Mayor, for nearly 9 years, this vibrant florist has been a cherished part of our community, providing exceptional floristry services for that special occasion or special person. From their humble beginnings, selling $5 bunches of flowers with an honesty system, they've maintained that personal touch as a home-based storefront. This is an amazing achievement, and Vanessa, her family and the crew at the Flower Crew Originals should be very proud of all their hard work and commitment to both their business and our local community. Thank you.
That will be passed on. I'm believing I'm going to go out and see them, so we'll have to take the certificate with us and see them together. Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you very much. Lots of stuff happening in Division 11 as well. Congratulations, Flagstone State Community College. They recently held Book Week in the high school and haven't done it in quite a while. We actually had judges come across from the kindy. It was gorgeous. I was there to celebrate with them and handed out some extra prizes and that sort of thing. So congratulations to them for actually keeping the tradition going, getting into high school. It's very hard when kids are in high school to actually do this. They're a bit like, oh, I'm too cool for school and don't want to participate. But to see the kids that did, it was very cool. Also, I recently attended the Flagstone Business Awards, and they were held at the Flagstone Tavern. It was great. It was actually before the Flagstone Tavern opened, so we got a sneak peek into it. Flagstone Tavern had a soft opening last week. I went there on Monday night, and it's actually fully fledged and open after, I don't know, 18 months, 2 years. I don't even know how long this place took to build and that sort of thing, but it's open. But celebrating the Flagstone Business Awards, there was a range of categories. There was a multitude of winners. It was terrific to see everyone come together, enjoy a meal, and actually celebrate the local businesses that we do have in the community. So well done to everyone involved. Thank you.
I think the people of Flagstone are very relieved that the tavern is finally finished. I think it might have even been 3 years of construction from start to finish. And I had regular questions about why council was taking so long. It wasn't us, was it, Councillor Wilcox? We were not responsible. We would never get between the people and their tavern. Councillor Murphy. Thank you very much, councillors. Those congratulations will be forwarded on to their recipients. I now refer to the minutes of the previous ordinary council meeting and move those minutes be confirmed. Is there a seconder from this motion? Thank you, Councillor St Ledger. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That motion has been carried unanimously. We'll now move to, I refer to the minutes of the previous special council meeting. While Councillor Jeremiah did declare conflicts of interest in respect of both 5.1 and 5.2 of the special council meeting and voluntarily left the meeting, he is eligible to vote in relation to the adoption of the minutes under section 254 5B of the Local Government Regulation. I move that the minutes of the special council meeting held on the 2nd of September be confirmed. Is there a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Councillor Bannon. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much, councillors. I now refer to declarations of conflict of interest. Do any councillors have any new conflicts of interest they'd like to declare against items on today's agenda, including any that have subsequently arisen from matters this week? No, thank you. There being none, I note that Councillor Haramaya has a declarable conflict of interest in relation to multiple items that were addressed at the committee meetings held on the 3rd and 4th of September. As Councillor Haramaya voluntarily chose to leave those meetings, we'll separate them from each report so you can leave when we vote on those matters and debate them in this meeting. We have no business arising from the minutes, and so now we will move on to the committee reports and recommendations. We'll begin with the City Infrastructure Committee meeting held on the 3rd of September. Deputy Mayor Bannon, Chairperson of the City Infrastructure Committee, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I note that Councillor Haramaya declared a conflict of interest in respect to items 6.5, 6.6 and 6.7 of the City Infrastructure Committee meeting, where he voluntarily left the meeting, including while the matters were discussed and voted on. Therefore, these items will be separated, as you mentioned, from the bulk of the adoption today. Accordingly, I now ask if Councillor Mock could please leave the meeting until the matters have been voted on.
Thank you, Councillor Bannon. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I won't speak to order recommendations. I will give a mention to 6.5. Councillor St Ledger, you were right in thanking the staff, but you're one of my best mates and you're very modest, but you need to give yourself a pat on the back, mate, because you made something look easy that people before you found it very difficult. So give yourself a pat on the back. You're already a master at your craft, mate, so there's no apprenticeship. Over to you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bannon. Do any councillors wish to speak to items 6.5, 6.6 or 6.7? Not even Councillor St Ledger? Excellent. There being no further speakers, Councillor Bannon, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I now move that the recommendations for items 6.5, 6.6 and 6.7 of the City Infrastructure Committee held on the 3rd of September 2024 be adopted.
Councillor Bannon has moved the motion on the screen. Would someone like to second that motion? Thank you, Councillor St Ledger. I now open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Would any councillors wish to record their name against any items on the agenda? Councillor Bradley?
Thank you. 6.5.
Thank you. Against? Thank you very much, Councillor Bradley. Councillor Wilcox.
I was against 6.5 as well.
Thank you, Councillor Wilcox. As those items have now been concluded, I request that Councillor Haramaya please be invited back into the meeting. Thank you, Councillor Haramaya. Deputy Mayor Bannon, you now may speak to the remainder of your report.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. No need to speak to recommendations. I'll just hand it straight back to you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. You may now move your recommendations.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I now move that the recommendations of the City Infrastructure be adopted.
With the exception of 6.5, 6.6 and 6.7 as on the screen. Would someone like to second that motion? Thank you, Councillor St Ledger. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Would any councillors like to record their name against or abstain from any of those items? No. We'll now move on to the City Governance Committee meeting held on the 3rd of September 2024. Would the chair of that committee, Councillor Murphy, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I note that Councillor Haramaya had a declarable conflict of interest in items 6.1 and 6.4 of the City Governance meeting, where he voluntarily left the meeting, including on while the matters were discussed and voted on. Therefore, items 6.1 and 6.4 will be separated from the bulk adoptions today. I also note that we received a supplementary report. Councillors would have got that only yesterday. 6.2 for the City of Logan Charitable Trust, September 2024. Therefore, this item will be separated from the bulk of the adoptions and addressed in later today's meeting. Could I please ask Councillor Haramaya to please leave the room until those matters are heard? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. You may proceed.
Mr Mayor, I'm going to hand it back to you. I will speak to the rest of the reports and the recommendations later in this report. Thank you.
Councillor Murphy has a recommendation on the screen. Would you like to move that recommendation, or do any councillors wish to speak to the reports before she does so? Councillor Bannon.
Not speaking to reports, Mr Mayor. For the benefit of the legends at the back, can we just explain why the conflict of interest for Councillor Jeremiah, just so I know what's actually happening?
Happy to. So Councillor Jeremiah is running as a state election candidate in the seat of Waterford. He has declared conflicts of interest on any matters that may relate to that seat, so he can't be perceived as using council matters for political gain. And so he's chosen, in practicing best practice for governance, to remove himself from the meeting voluntarily, which is also why he's going on leave in October. There we go. Everyone's nodding and smiling. Thank you, Councillor Bannon. Excellent suggestion. Councillor Murphy, you may proceed.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Bannon. That was a good move. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I now move the recommendations of 6.1, 6.4 of the City Governance meeting held on the 3rd of September 2024 be adopted.
Councillor Murphy has moved the motion on the screen. Would someone like to second that motion? Thank you, Councillor Stemp. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Would any councillors like to record their name against 6.1 or 6.4? Councillor Bradley?
Thank you. Can I abstain from 6.1? Thank you.
You may. And Councillor Wilcox?
Abstain as well from 6.1, please.
Thank you, Councillor Wilcox. Oh, sorry, and Councillor Hall?
Sorry, I wanted to speak towards 6.4.
You may.
I would like to say a few words in regards to item 6.4, which I believe is one of the most important reports of not only today's Ordinary Council meeting, but probably one of the most important reports this Council has done over the last 12 years since the Queensland Government capped the infrastructure charges back in 2011.
Councillor Hall, I think you're talking about the City Planning Committee.
Oh, yes, I am.
Yeah, we'll do that next, eh?
Okay.
Thank you very much, Councillor Murphy. Now that we have dealt with those matters for which Councillor Jeremiah has a conflict of interest, can you please call him back into the room? I do appreciate your enthusiasm, Councillor Hall, at wanting to get in there. Councillor Murphy now may speak to the remainder of the recommendations.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and now I will speak to the reports. We had 7 reports and a lot was discussed, but I just wanted to highlight 6.7. Today I wish to speak to the great work for the Value for Money program is doing with inside the organisation. I'd like to thank Kay Sullivan and all the team for and the branches that have been involved. Their effort and commitment to our community is outstanding. The report was the 2023-24 report, and of that, 31 value for money initiatives were progressed by 15 branches right across council. We have had a hard saving of $1.8 million for that year, and a cost avoidance of $1.9+ million as well. So that means that our council is working really hard for our ratepayers and making sure that we get the best value for money. Materially reduced the financial risk to our organisation by $509.1 million. So that's a massive improvement on our organisational efficiency and effectiveness. So congratulations to that team and the whole organisation for working for the value for money, and it just shows that this council is working hard for our residents. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. I know that as the Chair of City Governance, you're passionate about efficiency and minimising risk, so it's excellent to see you speak to that report. Would any other councillors like to speak to any of these motions? There being none, you may move your report.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I now would like that the recommendations of the City Governance Committee meeting held on the 3rd of September, with the exception of 6.1, 6.2, 6.4, be adopted.
Councillor Murphy has moved the motion on the screen. Would someone like to second that motion? Thank you, Councillor Jackson. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Would any councillors like to record their name against any of those reports? Councillor Wilcox?
I abstain for 6.5 and 6.6.
Thank you, Councillor Wilcox. We'll now move on to the City Planning, Economic Development and Environment Committee meeting held on the 4th of September. Councillor Stemp, Chairperson of that committee, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I note that Councillor Jeremiah declared a conflict of interest in respect to items 6.2 and 6.4 of the City Planning, Economic Development and Environment Committee meeting, where he voluntarily left the meeting, including while the matters were discussed and voted on. Therefore, items 6.2 and 6.4 will be separated from the bulk of the discussions today. Accordingly, I now ask Councillor Jeremiah to please leave the meeting until these matters are voted on.
Thank you, Councillor Jeremiah. Councillor Stemp, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I will now speak to recommendations for items 6.2 and 6.4. Mr Mayor, item 6.2, Environmental Offset Tree Planting Projects report referred to an additional 43 hectares of council-managed land which has been identified as suitable for establishing environmental vegetation offsets and will be fully funded from the Environmental Offsets Constrained Income Reserve. These sites will provide appropriate fire breaks and maintenance access trails, and planting areas will be designed and maintained to allow for future community recreation activities such as walking trails, which is great news. Secondly, Mr Mayor, item 6.4, managing growth outside the priority infrastructure area, addresses the discrepancy between council's costs to deliver infrastructure and our ability to levy infrastructure charges on developers, which has reached a critical tipping point for a high-growth council like Logan. Today, we are one step closer to exercising our powers under state legislation and implementing additional payment conditions which are designed to help close the growing gap between infrastructure charges and the increasing costs of construction. We believe these steps will not only safeguard our council's financial health, but will also ensure that our communities continue to thrive and prosper into the future. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Stemp. I know the community never likes to see trees cut down for development, and knowing that we're restoring 43 hectares of degraded land in our city with new vegetation is very exciting. Councillor Hall, I believe you wanted to speak to item 6.4.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to say a few words in regards to item 6.4, which I personally believe is one of the most important reports, if not one of today's ordinary council, if not one of the most important reports that council has done over the last 12 years since the Queensland Government capped the infrastructure charges back in 2011. This is my opinion. It may not be shared by council and it may not be shared by everyone here today. It is a fact that our city and others have suffered greatly because of capped infrastructure charges. You only need to look at the roads in developing areas to see this. The capped infrastructure charges have forced this council into a game of catch-up across the entire electorate. Every councillor here today has roads that are in desperate need of an upgrade. I would say this problem extends across the entirety of all councils across Queensland, but it hits hardest in developing ones such as Logan. Now, there is a discourse that capped infrastructure charges help keep property prices down, and in my opinion, this is false. I was working in real estate during the changes made in 2011, and not one single developer that I know of lowered their prices to accommodate capped infrastructure charges. Property prices are based on what buyers and the market wants to pay, not on what developers decide to charge. It is like saying that self-service checkouts lowered food prices. It did not. All it did is put the extra work on us. Capped infrastructure charges will not solve the housing crisis. The evidence of this is apparent in some of our parks. We have all seen it. Queensland communities rely on councils to provide critical infrastructure like roads, parks, water and wastewater to keep pace with growth. We use infrastructure charges to pay for that, and without it, we have to charge ratepayers. Now, this council has done a very good job of protecting ratepayers from this, but it is becoming something that we may no longer be able to do. I support the report of item 6.4, but I would like to ask residents to do what they can to help with this problem. Go to the people you're considering voting for in this state election and ask if they are going to support uncapping infrastructure charges so that we as a community can stop making developers richer and start putting badly needed money back into our roads and infrastructure. Their answer will let you know their true feelings towards the future of our city and the safety of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hall, for your passionate speech. You are correct that if we do not have infrastructure charges to cover the 10-year plan for our local government infrastructure plan, that rates have to go up to pay for that infrastructure, or we just deliver less, which makes our ratepayers frustrated and our residents frustrated because they expect us to deliver great infrastructure when it's needed, not 10 years later. Councillor Stemp, you may now move your motion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I now move that the recommendations for items 6.2 and 6.4 of the City Planning, Economic Development and Environment Committee meeting held on the 4th of September 2024 be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Stemp. Councillor Stemp has moved the motion on the screen. Would someone like to second that? Thank you, Councillor Hall. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Would any councillors like to record their name against either of those reports? No? We can now bring Councillor Herrenmeyer back to the room as those matters have been resolved. We're helping you with your step count today, Councillor Herrenmeyer. Councillor Stemp, you can now speak to the remainder of your recommendations.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have nothing further and will hand back to you.
Thank you, Councillor Stemp. You may move the motion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I now move the recommendations of the City Planning, Economic Development and Environment Committee meeting held on the 4th of September 2024 with the exceptions of items 6.2 and 6.4 be adopted.
Councillor Stemp has moved the motion on the screen. Would someone like to second that motion? Thank you, Councillor Bannon. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Would any councillors like to record their name against any reports? Councillor Herrenmeyer?
Abstain on item 6.1.
Thank you, Councillor Herrenmeyer. Anyone else?
Can I abstain from 6.1? Thank you.
You may. Councillor Stemp?
Mr Mayor, I abstain from item 6.3.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? No? We'll now move on to the City Lifestyle Committee meeting held on the 4th of September 2024. Councillor Hall, chairperson of that committee, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I note that Councillor Herrenmeyer declared a conflict of interest in respect to general business item 6.2.1 of the Lifestyle Committee meeting where he voluntarily left the meeting, including while the matter was discussed and voted on. Therefore, items 6.2 and .1 will be separated from the bulk of the adoption and addressed later in today's meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. You're going to ask him to leave? Councillor Herrenmeyer, you may leave. He's about to address that report. Thank you. Councillor Hall, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll now speak to recommendations. During the City Lifestyle Committee last week, councillors were presented with 4 reports. The first 2 reports presented by the Sports Community Infrastructure Branch and the Parks Branch provided a summary on key infrastructure projects and delivers and achievements over the past 12 months. The third report sought Council's endorsement for community consultation in relation to the next Libraries Learning and Discovery Plan. This plan aims to improve accessibility to residents across the city to enjoy library programs, services and collections. Councillors reviewed the 4th report presented by the City Safety and Livability Branch in confidential. It involved alleged animal management offences. During general business, councillors discussed a future report be presented on the planned embellishment for recreational areas located on Murray Road and Tanamera. It is wonderful to hear that councillors praising the welcoming environments created within the libraries with school holiday approaching. I can strongly recommend attending the city's various libraries as they increase programming, offerings and activities during this period. I'm confident that council officers are working hard to deliver exceptional projects and services to the community. We are looking forward to future committees to hear of these plans and success over the remainder of this year.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Would anyone else like to speak to item 6.2.1? There being none, you may move the motion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I now move that recommendations of the City Lifestyle Committee meeting held on the Wednesday, 4th of September be adopted.
Councillor Hall would you like to move the recommendation on the screen, which is slightly different to what you just said? It's just item 6.2.1.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that the recommendations in respect to item 6.2.1 of the City Lifestyle Committee meeting held on the 4th September 2024 be adopted.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hall has moved the motion on the screen. Would someone like to second that motion? Thank you, Councillor Russell. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Would any councillors like to record their name against that motion? There being none, Councillor Heremiah may return to the room. Now, Councillor Hall, Councillor Heremiah is going to miss out on your full report, but I'm sure he can watch it back later on the YouTube recording, or you can provide him your notes. Welcome back, Councillor Heremiah. Councillor Hall gave his full report, but you can watch it later on the YouTube because I know how excited you are about Councillor Hall's presentations. Councillor Hall, you may now speak to your recommendations.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I now move that the recommendations of the City Lifestyle Committee meeting held on Wednesday the 4th of September be adopted.
With the exception of item 6.2.1, I'll just give other councillors an opportunity to speak to any other recommendations if they wish to. There being none, Councillor Hall has moved the recommendation on the screen. Would someone like to second that motion? Thank you, Councillor Stemp. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Would any councillors like to record their name against any of the items on that report?
Thank you. Through the chair. Can I abstain from 6.1? Thank you.
Yes, you can. Any other councillors? No? Excellent. We'll now move on to council reports, which is item 12.1. We have one council report to consider. I now refer to item 12.1 being the attendance at the Global Conference by the Quality of Life Initiative and World Urban Forum. I invite Mr David Hanson, Director of Growth, Economy and Sustainability, to join the discussions. Mr Hanson, once you've taken your seat, please speak to your report.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and through you. Good morning, councillors. As part of the Quality of Life initiative that Council's been involved in since the start of this year, the Mayor and the Director of Growth, Economy and Sustainability have been invited to attend not only the Global Quality of Life Conference, but also the World Urban Forum in November in Cairo. The purpose of our attendance is to actually actively participate in this program, so that will involve a number of panel sessions and presentations for the Mayor and I to celebrate our involvement as a pilot, one of sort of a dozen or so pilot cities, and to represent the interests of Logan in that program. The UN Quality of Life program will cover all the baseline travel costs for the Mayor and myself. It is recommended in this report that the Mayor's Chief of Staff also travel to support the Mayor, that the Mayor be endorsed to fly business class and both the Director and Chief of Staff fly premium economy class. All such recommendations are in line with the Council's corporate travel and accommodation policy. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Ms Hanson. Are there any questions from any councillors? Councillor Wilcox.
Just to be clear, so all three will be attending both the Quality of Life Global Conference and the World Urban Forum. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr Mayor, that is correct. We're just a bit unsure as to how much of that World Urban Forum will all be required to attend, so we're just waiting to see what those events actually entail. I, for instance, will be there the whole way through because I know there's an event for me to attend and speak at on the Thursday, but just waiting on clarification. But I'd say most of us will be there the whole way through.
And it says that it will financially support one representative for the World Urban Forum. So if all three are going, where's the funding coming from for the other two for that one?
So all of the top-up funding for myself and the Mayor comes from my Directorate recurrent budget. All of the funding associated with the Chief of Staff comes from the Mayor's budget.
Any further councillors have any questions? There being none, Councillor Bennett would like to remove the report, and the report is displayed on the screen. Would any councillors like to second the report? Thank you, Councillor Russell. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried. Councillor Heremiah, how do you vote?
Abstain.
Noting that Councillor Bradley was absent for the vote. Thank you very much, councillors. We'll now move on to late reports, which is item 13.1, the City of Logan Charitable Trust September 2024 supplementary report. We have one late report to consider. I note that this item includes an attachment which is considered confidential under section 254J3G as the negotiations relate to commercial matter involving local government for which a public discussion would likely prejudice the interests of the local government. Councillor Heremiah, I believe you removed yourself for the charity trust discussions during committee round, was that right?
Not to my recollection.
Okay, my apologies. The councillors, would anyone like to move into confidential to discuss this report? There being none, you may ask questions of the Corporate Governance Manager, Anita White, or the CEO, noting that we are in confidential. We're in public, so you cannot ask any questions that specifically relate to the confidential attachments. Do any councillors have any questions for the CEO or the Corporate Governance Manager? There being none. Oh, sorry, Councillor Lane.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Can someone advise when the next round and whether it will be proceeding and on what date for the Charity Trust?
Through the Chair, once we have a resolution from Council today, we'll have that discussion with the CEO in respect of the approach to the recruitment for the permanent directors.
As soon as possible.
Do any councillors have any further questions? Oh, Anita would like to speak to the report. Thank you.
Sorry, and through the Chair, councillors, one of the recommendations from last week was to accept the resignation of the current directors from today's date. I'd like to propose a small amendment to that recommendation so that the resignation takes effect on the 30th of September to allow for an orderly transition in practical sense in terms of signatories to the bank accounts, all of those practical stuff. So just a minor amendment to affect 30 September resignations.
Thank you. Councillor Stem, you have a question?
Sorry, Mr Mayor, just a quick one. Obviously, report noted that funds will still be able to be received into the trust during the interim period, but what about in terms of payments out to the community? Will that happen during the interim period while they're doing the review?
It's not intended, Councillor Stemp. It's intended that once we have the permanent directors, that will be their focus.
Any further questions, councillors? No? There being none, there will be an amended motion on the screen in line with the Corporate Governance Manager's recommendation. I will give you a moment to read through that amended motion. Councillor Bradley, we're just looking at an amended motion for the late report. If you have any questions on it, it's a confidential report, so we'd have to go into confidential to consider those.
Just ask what has been amended.
The amendment is the accepting of the resignation, of the date of the accepting of the resignation of the current board, so there's an orderly transition with time to appoint the interim board so they can do a handover. Do any councillors have any further questions on what's on the screen? Would someone like to move the motion on the screen? Thank you, Councillor Bannon. Would someone like to second that motion? Thank you, Councillor Wilcox. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Sorry, that has been carried because Councillor Jackson has reminded me it's not unanimous unless we all vote. Councillor Russell, how do you vote?
Abstain, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. I would also like to abstain and record a reason. I would have liked to see more gender diversity in the appointments. Councillors, that brings us to the conclusion of that motion. If no other councillors wish to change their vote, we now will move on to item 14, which is petitions. Do any councillors have any petitions they'd like to present? And then any notified motions? Finally, general business. Today we will start with Councillor Hall, Division 6. Do you have any general business, Councillor? Councillor Fraser, Councillor Jeremiah, Councillor Bannon, Stemp, Wilcox?
Sure. I always take the opportunity. Over the past couple of weeks, I've actually had the pleasure of attending lots of conferences, forums, meetings outside of the office here, not just for Division 11, but also in my role for the City of Logan. I recently attended the ALGA conference along with Councillor Russell, where I listened to some amazing women talk about their experiences in their local councils and how they lead their local communities. I also attended a local government conference the other day, and it would have been timely for Councillor Hall to be there because I asked point blank a question to David Crisafulli about his infrastructure charges and whether or not he was to take government if he would raise it. And I've also asked the Premier when he wasn't Premier point blank that question as well. But going to the local government forum, it was interesting to listen to both sides of politics talk about their future for our communities, the state and the growth of our population versus our infrastructure delivery, because we all know as councillors we do struggle with that at the moment with the capping of our infrastructure charges. But the most rewarding forum I actually went to recently was held at Flagstone State Community College. And it was with teachers, Logan City Council staff attended, emergency services attended, and we also had students representing grade 7 to grade 9 to discuss local disaster resilience in the local community. I went, as did the other adults in the room, to hear from the young people. I wanted to hear their experiences when Flagstone community is struck with a disaster, and unfortunately they have been struck year on year with different disasters over the past few years. And I've spoken many times about how dangerous it is in that community with one main road leading into and out of the area. But hearing from the youth actually opened my eyes to what they feel and what they think. They live in the community just as all of us, and they've provided some really good insight into the room for their knowledge and their involvement of what a disaster looks like to them. I know I'm a mum, I have 2 kids, and when they were quite younger, I used to try and shelter them just a little bit. These kids aren't sheltered and they know exactly what's going on around them. It really opened my eyes to this because most of them were like 11, 12, 13. So hopefully after this process, it will help identify strategic ways for disaster management, how it's managed in the area, and the resilience building that's needed in communities, especially for the young people and beyond, because those young people are going to be the ones that grow up in the community and they're the ones that are going to lead the community. So some takeaways I got that I wanted to share was our aim was to assess local disaster risks from youth perspective, evaluate the extent to which local disaster management plans meet their needs and their priorities, explore the benefits and challenges of involving students in disaster management planning, and develop recommendations for how the disaster management and education sectors can support the involvement of students in disaster management, both in their school and their wider community. And these are some of the things that the students came up with. Young people need to be involved so they're aware of their surrounding areas and what's happening. They call out things on their peers. They tell them what not to do is wrong and what's okay to do. Young people need to be involved because if their parents don't know what to do, they can actually help educate them. They can tell them, no, we're actually flooded in for the next 3 days. Just stay at home. Go take a photo of the river that's flooded down the road. And let's just sit at home, read a book, play some games, have some family time. Young people need to be involved so they grow up knowing what to do if a disaster occurs. When that fire was coming down on Flagstone, the young people didn't stress. It was the adults that were stressed. Involving us now gives us training for the future. I thought that was brilliant. We need to educate them. We need to tell them what they can and can't do and how they can and can't get around their community. So as a parent, I know that I tried to shelter my kids, but I know that's wrong. I've realised that from listening to these kids. But these students let us know that even though they're young, they're part of the community too. And because they're young, they are the future of our community and they can be educated for future generations. That's what I really took out of it. They're the ones that we need to educate. Parents are really hard and adults are really hard sometimes to change their thinking. So I want to thank Margaretta and Jenny for approaching me about this project to come to the City of Logan and especially to come to Flagstone State Community College to be the pilot for this, and Bryony for taking the time to educate myself and all involved. And thank you to the kids that were involved for really educating me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilcox. I note that this is a pilot in Queensland. No one else has done it before, so Logan are trailblazers when it comes to disaster management. And you often raise in committee that the schools in the West miss out on the cool stuff, but this time the only school that got to do it was the school in the West. So I knew you'd be thrilled about that when I saw that they'd selected Flagstone College as their pilot school. Thank you, Councillor Wilcox, Councillor Murphy. Councillor Bradley is not here. Councillor Lane, Councillor Russell, Councillor St Ledger.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. As a lot of people would know, it's Suicide Prevention Month this month, so it's something that's close to my heart. I do a bit of work in this space along with Councillor Bannon as well. For me, it was really pleasing to see our community team yesterday hosting an event for our services to actually connect, our support services within our community, for them to actually connect, to be able to help our communities. We lose 9 people a day to suicide in this country, 7 of those are men. So they're alarming statistics, and that's a huge disaster. That's a huge epidemic. And it's something that's continually growing. So to see Logan Council getting behind and supporting these community events and making sure that our support networks know who one another are to be able to further help our community, we can play a small role in helping that. Because as individuals, we can make a small change. And that's what we can do. So I just want to bring everyone's attention to that. Make sure, reach out, say hello to someone that you haven't spoke to for a little while. If somebody's struggling, reach out. There is always hope out there, and let's be part of the solution.
Thank you, Councillor St Ledger. Councillor Jackson.
Oh, sorry, Mr Mayor.
You will be. You will be.
A big congratulations. Brad White, Michelle Griffin and the team over there, they're the real superstars.
Ah, smooth, very smooth. Councillor Jackson.
Sorry, Councillor Jackson.
I just wanted to celebrate Division 5 a bit. I got to have my first community forum last month, and it was just exciting to have a bunch of Division 5 residents out. I want to particularly acknowledge Councillor Harry-Meyer's training of me in community meetings over the last several years. I'd been to a few of his as a community member, giving presentations about local history. And I was excited about the engagement he saw. I saw the same engagement from Division 5 of people getting together. And coming up with solutions, we had some great questions asked from the floor and discussed a bunch of those things. One of the things I was really excited about, and I want to give a shout out to Danny Keto for being the last man standing, last woman standing on Neighbourhood Watch for Marsden Crestmead. She's continued to keep that alive by the skin of its teeth, but we were able to rally some troops and start to re-energise that space of Neighbourhood Watch across Division 5. I'm really excited about that and thankful for her work.
Great work, Councillor Jackson. I know we lost the Marsden Neighbourhood Watch about 3 years ago because we didn't have enough volunteers to fill the executive. So losing the Crestmead Neighbourhood Watch, which has been such a long-running and successful neighbourhood watch in the city, would have been a shame. Great work for leaning in and supporting that. Councillors, there being no further general business, I declare the meeting closed at 10:51 a.m. Thank you very much.